Welcome to the Bookish Rambles podcast with me, Holly,
And me, Becky.
and today we're talking Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte,
Yeah,
which
one of my favourite classics.
and it's not really a new book.
No.
Do you know what? This
It's
series
over
we're talking
200
quite
years
old
old.
ones.
Yeah, it's over 1847. So it's 170.
40 years.
So 170,
I immediately forgot the year that you
169,
said, I'm not gonna lie.
1847. I can't do maths. Um,
293.
oh wow. So we can say it's 200 years old then.
Yeah,
No, wait, 179 it says.
well, I don't know. But it's old,
Isn't that strong say? Yeah, let's just say it's about 200 years old.
which is like, Jurassic Park was about 30 years old now.
So, yeah.
We're going to do an episode this season on The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger,
Which
which,
I read a long, long time ago, and I can't remember anything about that book, so that tells you how much I remember.
yeah, I need to reread it. And then we've got one more coming up that I needed to read. Oh, it is a newer one, actually, so I'm not going to mention it in this little bit because it doesn't matter because it's not old. But we did also talk about the Jurassic Park book, which is, I would say, it counts as old now because it's 30 odd years old.
Mm-hmm.
That's the world we live in, guys. 30 years and you're considered old.
Please don't
Bodes well
say
for
that.
you.
Yeah, I'm not 30 yet, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we'll get there and then we'll have like a party on stream or something.
The end of a decade. Wow.
We should do that trend where it's like, what year were you born? And then for you it would be like a dinosaur meme.
Oh, for goodness sake.
And then the reverse of it, where it's for me, I'm like,
The funny thing is, there's like, yeah, we were born close in time to each other, though. Like, I'm only 5 years older than you. I mean, yeah, that makes a difference. But as adults, I don't think it makes that much of a difference.
no, it really doesn't. I feel like you
As
have friends
teenage,
who are
yeah.
older than
But
5 years, realistically.
yeah, like,
Even as a teenager, I feel like if you're 13, you're not going to be necessarily friends with an 8-year-old, but you could become acquaintances with an 18-year-old, especially if you're like a girl, I think, because
yeah.
girls mature a little bit faster. So if you met a girl who was 18, you probably think she was like a cool older sister, and then you might end up being friends when you sort of like hit adulthood and you're both kind of like the age doesn't really actually make a difference. I feel like it's not that weird. Like, it's obviously weird if you're like busy mates with like a 14-year-old. But as long as it's like not really that, I feel like there's still things that you can connect with because again, it's a 5-year difference. You probably still watch the TV programs for kids of your age, the same and stuff.
Well, people are still too busy watching Fruit Love Island. I'm sorry, it's really irritating.
I
Like, have you
feel
seen anything about that?
I've only seen the screenshots. Luckily, my For You page is, let's just say it's for me.
I mean, I keep getting Japanese dog memes.
You get so many things that I'm just like,
It's because Josh sends me random,
yeah. I
but like,
no,
uh,
I don't get stuff like that.
no, I saw the videos of people reacting to it. I've been watching some YouTube videos on it, and they're all like they're all like we're cooked, and I'm like, yeah, because people are only entertained by it because it's been shoved in front of their face. That's the reason.
I
Because
got
they're
that
just
ad,
addicted to
didn't
scrolling.
I? And I sent it to you. The one of it was okay. First of all, I'm gonna talk this through so that if you don't, because there's no video, so you're gonna see what this is without having to actually use your eyes. Imagine this, okay? You're scrolling through TikTok. You get an ad. It's for a top that you've seen a bunch of people wearing and selling from their video. And you've looked into it because you're like, you know what? Yeah, that's not a bad top, but what is the material? It's like 20 odd quid and it's plastic. It's made of plastic. And you're like, okay, I'm not buying from a dodgy shop on TikTok shop for plastic. If there was a shop, one that I keep getting is like Addicted. I'm not buying stuff from Addicted if it's gonna just be like polyester, okay? I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. It doesn't last as long. It's fine if it's a nice dress and you're only gonna wear it once or twice, and it's fine if it's sleeveless, but if it's not sleeveless, I am autistic and I am on multiple medications for, my brain. So I'm sorry, but like I'm not wearing something that's going to make me sweat because I do not sweat anywhere near as much in non-synthetic fabrics as I do in synthetic ones. So if you're out there and you're wearing like plastic clothing and you're sweating a lot, change it to cotton, babe. Swear to God, it literally in lots of cases is like the same price, which is why it's like, for example, cider do things that's like not fully like there are a lot of cheap options that aren't. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, well, I'm never gonna wear that because it's long sleeved and it's plastic, so it's not gonna be worn very well. And then I'm thinking, fair enough, you're getting your bag, you're selling it on TikTok Shop by linking it to your video of you wearing it. That's cool, whatever. Then I get an advert. Not a person trying to sell me a top. No, no, no. An AI video of the top with an AI person who is supposed to look real selling me this top in an AI room.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I'm not buying. And it's like obviously it is a real top. I've seen it on real people. I'm not buying. Even if I wanted it, I'm not buying something because like how am I supposed to know that that's a real product? Why would you market clothing that way? I genuinely can't fathom anyone seeing that ad and thinking, you know what? This AI generated top looks so good. Let me buy it. Because I swear that there was like let me look this up. There was like a famous person. And they literally were like going off. Melissa Joan Hart, who I don't even know who that is. I just know that she's like a celebrity. But I saw this like video or like a picture or something of whoever this woman is, who's an actress, and she bought a dress that was so obviously AI generated, right? Like the picture is not even like the realistic kind of AI. It was the like blurry background, very cartoonish of a Christmassy dress. And then she got one of those dresses where it was like the AI pattern printed on cheap fabric, right? Looks like a children's cheap party dress for a costume, right? And I just, like, if you're falling for AI scams of clothing, obviously there's some that's more realistic. I don't want to shame people for accidentally, not understanding AI. But, like, if you're buying off of TikTok Shop, you gotta be looking into it. You gotta be checking if this is, like, a legit thing with a lot of legit reviews that have images of the clothing being worn on different people. Like, you gotta be doing your due diligence. And I feel like, I don't know, I just don't understand who would ever buy an AI generated clothing item from an AI generated ad. Like, even if it was a real item as it was in this case, because I knew that beforehand. I'd seen it before. Even if I like hadn't known that, I wasn't gonna buy the thing. And I certainly wouldn't, like, I would have avoided it for sure because I'd be like, no, this is a scam. It just is so dumb.
I think people just fall for it. Anyway, back to Jane Eyre.
Yeah.
At least we know it's not AI generated because the book's 200 years old. Just to tie the subject to each other.
Yeah. It, like, that's the thing though as well, is it's one of those books where there are some people who would probably read it and they'd be like, oh, this has like an AI indicator in it, and it's like, get a grip.
Yeah, just because it does it use M dashes?
I think it
I
uses
imagine I know it probably does because it was,
But it just is like, I hate when people, they act like that. It just, no. But it honestly, okay, Jane Eyre, I had some notes, actually. First note that I had, which honestly, bit of a... Okay, so I've read a book that you haven't read that I'm going to be giving to you when I see you in a few weeks. And this book...
Oh yeah, oh my gosh, that's not far now.
I know.
Oh, it's about a month and a bit into it.
Yeah, it's May. But, but I have like a book that I'm going to give to you, and it talks about his wife. Spoilers for Jane Eyre. The guy that Jane gets involved with, he has a wife who is quote unquote crazy, and she is like locked away in this room, basically like an attic room. And I want to talk about that specifically because Jane gets, as a kid, she's living with her family who don't really like her, and she gets thrown into the red room because it's a room that's all red and somebody died in there. And she sees these like apparitions, these voices and stuff in this room. And she is a child, she's, traumatized. But she's in this cold room alone. She hasn't eaten really. And she's just like being like a ghost basically. And she then later experiences similar sort of things, but they're like a real woman who's being stored in like a specific room of the house. being stored, being held, basically. And I wanted to talk about that because I feel like maybe that was intentional. Like maybe the Red Room, the significance of it is the fact that she then later on in life, is in this room where she like sees this woman being held captive because she's gone mad and she's like tried to kill people and is basically being treated like an animal, because she's lost her sanity, which of course she would if you've been kept in a room without like a window and without like, human company and people that respect you instead of resent you and think of you as like this beastly person. And I just feel like it's really interesting that Jane, as a kid, essentially has this experience at the hands of her guardian who is her like aunt. And she has this experience, but then as an adult, she sees somebody else having a similar experience, being locked away, even as she sort of bangs on the door and begs to be let out. And she doesn't side with the person. She doesn't understand how they're kind of like two sides of the same coin. And, she was lucky enough to get out of that situation. I just think that's interesting. Like, I just think that whole concept and the way that it's presented is so interesting.
Yeah. I've never really thought about that. Now you just put that out there. And like, when you don't really think, no, you don't think about it, do you, at all? Because it's kind of
Well, I
the
went
thing.
into it with student brain. I'm not gonna lie.
No, but like when you think, no, but like that raises a point when you think about it, right? You don't really know a lot about. Do I just call her Mrs. Rochester? Because what's her name? Is it? Oh, I can't remember. Gosh, it's been so.
She gets given. The thing is that
I can't remember her
I
name.
can't remember if she gets given name of Rochester's wife because I can't remember because I read the book where it's about Bertha.
Yeah. No, it's Bertha. Yeah, Bertha. That's it.
No, I
Yeah,
looked it
because
up. I didn't just pull that off the
oh
cuff. Don't think I was like I actually remembered.
no, yeah, Bertha. No, like yeah, because you think she's kind of like just yes, her mental health is declining, but like she's kind of described as kind of like a villain when she's just really a woman whose health has gone wrong. But like that's how Christians, because this book does have very heavy Christian imagery, doesn't it?
Well, she
Because like
goes to basically
the
a convent,
grand
doesn't she?
yeah, don't they
Like
brand her as a sinner and stuff? They make her stand on a table, if I remember correctly.
she stands on I think it's like a tall stool. So it's which is
Yeah, because she
worse
broke a
because that's like
slate.
so dangerous, by the way, to make like a 10-year-old stand on a really not that big stool for hours. Well, half
Yeah.
an hour. But it's such a like a classic, like a Victorian punishment. Wait, hang on. Is it literally was it set during the Victorian? I no.
When does
Around
the
there,
Victorian
right?
period? Is it just about before? When did the Victorian 1818, I believe, right? The Victorian period started. So is it like 1820 or something?
Because it
I imagine it'd be around the same time it was published. So it'd be sometime in the 90s.
1837
Right. Okay.
and Jane Eyre
So yeah, definitely
is
might be
set.
just before.
Oh,
Might
yeah,
be
it's
before.
before me.
Yeah.
It's Georgian, but
Okay.
still, it's the same sort of stuff.
Kind of period. Yeah.
Oh, this person on Reddit, I've just looked it up. The question is, why isn't Jane Eyre set in the Victorian period?
Well, because it's not during Queen Victoria's reign. It's during. Is it King George III? Yeah, Georgian. Yeah.
Yeah,
Iron question there. Yeah, because it's Georgian, because it's during King George. Do people not realise the Victorian period is called the Victorian period because of Queen Victoria?
I think. Do you know what's the problem? Is that
I think because it's such a definitive
in
period, you don't think of
America,
Victoria. Yeah.
because like you think about when. Okay, so America was colonized in the late 16th century, which is obviously it's
Yeah.
the King James, because of Jamestown being like the first, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like when you think about it, Americans they got rid of them during King George, so they got rid of them during the Georgian period.
Mm.
So they never actually had they didn't, right?
They had the Wild West and the if you want I can go into I am
Yeah,
I
1776. So it was the Georgian period.
yeah.
So they had like a different history from Britain in that they
Oh
didn't
no.
go through like the Victorian stuff. They didn't go through like the Dickensian stuff. Like,
No,
they
people.
had their civil war, and then they had like the issues. I say the issues, that makes it sound like I'm blaming people. I'm blaming the white people, if anyone, just to
The
be
gold,
clear. But they
the
had the
gold rush
stuff
was
with the Native
1849.
Americans and all of the schools. They had the stuff, obviously, like, for example, the situation with like Hawaii and Alaska. They had to gain all of their different states, they had to set the land with Mexico,
Mm.
blah, 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 blah. So they didn't technically have a Victorian period, but they have Victorian style homes, and the Victorian style homes are nothing like the Victorian style homes that
I
we
will.
have.
I will say I love. Some of the Victorian mansions in the US are gorgeous.
Oh, and their
Like,
French stuff, gorge.
yeah, like you gotta admit, like they're gorgeous, and
I
a lot of them are empty, and it's like,
I want to go
if
to New Orleans
only.
so bad. Like, you don't understand how.
Yeah, it's just a shame
Obviously, I
that we
don't
can't at the moment.
wish that I was American, and I don't wish to be in America right now. Like, I would never live in America. That's not something I've ever considered. But you got to admit sometimes that architecture and like the sort of natural landscapes that they have,
Yeah, we don't.
gorgeous.
I
And
mean,
like
we have like
certain.
nice stuff, but not like that.
Okay, but here's the thing as well. I was just going to say certain bits of their culture. Realistically, the best bits of their culture are the non-white bits. Like, and that's, again, that's not even like a diss against white people. I love my culture as a white person. Sounds probably a bit weird to say, but I love like the Celtic history. I love like the history of like the Vikings in this part of the country. I
I'm
love.
sorry. I've just looked up, right? I'm just curious because I wanted to look at houses in the US because I'm just curious how much they are, right? 1918 Victorian house in Florida.
That's not
That's not
Victorian.
Victorian. That's
Edwardian?
Edwardian, yeah. That's Edwardian.
Like,
The Victorian period ended in 1901.
which is my favourite decade of houses, by the way. Edwardian, like, in terms of what I would want to live in, I feel like Edwardian homes are so practical but so beautiful.
St. Louis, Missouri, $1.3 million. Oh,
But, like, that's the thing, right? That
that's
you
ugly.
have. Is it St. Louis or St. Louis?
St. Louis, I think?
Because there's two
I think
different
St. I don't
ones.
know. I have no
I
idea.
don't know. Okay, whatever.
1908 Victorian
But,
home in Wisconsin.
so you
Oh, see,
have.
this is. Oh, that's what I mean when I say the houses.
Send
Look
me a
at
picture.
this. Yeah, it's
But like
gorgeous. I
you
just wish
have
they flipped
Native
on it.
American history, which is incredible
It's
and rich, and there are so many
Wisconsin.
different is tribes the right word? Different types of Native American groups with. Okay, yeah, that's what I mean as well. That
Yeah,
is like the kind where it's like fairy tale.
it's, it's gorgeous, isn't it?
Like it's
Especially the.
like the film version of the Spiderwick Chronicles.
Yes.
That house is so. That film.
I know. I've always wanted to read the books, and I was like, oh yeah, they're by Holly Black. I
Yeah,
really like Holly Black's work, so
it's
it's like,
crazy. They're on the
yeah,
library, so I think I'm gonna read them because I'm so
we should do it. Oh, we should do an episode on them.
We could. We actually could.
Yes.
We could do an episode. We could do a whole season where we just talk about children's books.
Oh
Because
yes,
we
especially.
wanted to talk about Narnia as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we wanted to like reread some Jacqueline Wilsons and stuff.
Which I've still got somewhere. I think they're in the other
I
room.
only
But
have Lily Alone, which is weird. You would have thought I would have
you can
kept
get them from
like
the
my sister
library.
Jodie, but
You can get them from the library.
yeah, it'll be easy. But like honestly, I think that like Native American history is so interesting. But then you also have, you have the fact that like there were so many different groups of colonists basically. Because
Mm.
you had the Spanish, you had the French, and so now you have like a bunch of different like the ethnic groups, but also you have obviously like there's a lot of black people because of slavery, and so you have like there's like the idea of like the ghetto, right?
Mm.
And so you have things like rap culture, which emerged, to my knowledge, primarily in America. Like, obviously, it is in other places, but I feel like America is where it's tightly tied in to gang culture as well. Like, rap artists in America, like, so many of them end up dead in a way that you don't really hear about that. Like, in the UK, rap is more of like it's like grime, basically, is what we would usually call it, is like there's the artist, like the sort of the grime scene. I swear I
Mm.
know more about it than it sounds like I know. But it's very different. Like, it's a huge part of like culture over there, is like this idea of the way in which cities are sort of built is separated by race a lot more than it is here. And like, yeah, there's still some places in the UK where it's definitely separated by like, this is like the black part of the city, this is the white bit, but a lot less. Whereas I think in America there's still quite a lot of, and like they get gentrified, so that kind of it upsets the balance a bit. But I feel like in America it's still very much like the race thing is still a huge part of like the culture of different cities. And it's like, it's just weird, I guess. Like when you look at it from like an outsider perspective, from a country where, you know, it's a lot less like, and this is the bit where these people live, and this is the bit where this other group of people live, and this is the bit, like, it really is like, it's like the cultures have their own. It's like New York, even. New York, a lot of people call it like the melting pot, but you don't really mix in all of the different people in New York. Like they have Chinatown, which a lot of places have a Chinatown, but like then you also have like Hell's Kitchen and stuff, which I think is supposed to be poor people. Sorry.
I mean, isn't there a place in Los Angeles? Is it called Skid Row?
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend about the Kardashians, okay? I was filling a friend in on the Kardashian lore. I don't support the Kardashians as people, I've said this before, but my god, they are so interesting to me. I love like drama, so like knowing about them is so fascinating. And if you can do it for free, no additional cost, might as well. So I have seen about 10 seasons of the Kardashian reality TV show, and the only reason I haven't watched the rest is because they weren't available at the time. However, there is an episode where they go to Skid Row.
Oh my god.
They do like volunteering stuff on Skid Row. But it was so fascinating because like Skid Row, it's literally like known for being super dangerous, but it's also like it's just a bunch of homeless people live there because it's
When you
like
saying those people have got nothing.
literally they have like they live on a street, and I think in some cases they have to like move around every now and then. It's so fascinating to me, like the whole situation that America's got going on, where it came from Britain. And I think a lot of people, they try and pretend that that's not true because they think that America's better, blah, blah, blah. But America took a lot of the traditions from Britain. They took the colonialism, they took the we're better than you, and then we hate foreigners, even though we made you all think that we were the better place to live. You know, we made you learn our language, but then how dare you come in here to use it? And then you have like this other side of it where it's like, yeah, it is really different, actually. It's really, really different. Like the way that the country operates. Like there are places where you literally wouldn't find anything like that in Britain. Like you wouldn't find a whole street that is like world famous for being decrepit basically, and like the place where like loads of people suffer and you know nothing is done about it because we have really
We do have
bad.
our rough areas, but
Yeah,
no, we wouldn't. I don't think we have anything like that.
like it's definitely not the place that you would. And I think again it's the thing of like even for all of our problems, the poverty that we have presents itself very differently.
Yeah, it's a very cultural thing, especially like I know we were talking about America, but like the Pledge of Allegiance, I find that really
That
weird.
drives me insane, the thought of.
I'm sorry, that's really weird.
Because, like, I think the only time in my life that I've ever had to sing, like, the national anthem, for example, was when we had, like, the Diamond Jubilee. And it was, like, an optional thing of, like, let's sing the national anthem. Or, like, one single assembly during, I think it was, like, again, another milestone or something. Like, it was never something that we actually had to, like, learn by heart. In fact, I don't know it. I know, like, God gracious, but I literally don't know it. I'm sorry. And you know what, I say I'm sorry, I'm not, because I don't like the idea of having a king. And if we're going to have a king, can we at least have the one who's like pro-Palestine?
Mhm.
Because William
Yeah.
is, that surprised me. Well, actually, it shouldn't though, because Harry is pro-Israel. He's like not pro-Palestine. But he was the one who did military service. So of course he would support what the British Army supports. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think the thing about like culture and stuff is really interesting, especially when you consider, for example, Jane Eyre, because you get this very, as I said, it's not Dickensian, but it's like this old-fashioned-y, very religious sort of thing that you don't really get in the UK anymore, of like punishments being the very like over the top, stand on top of this stool and don't say a word. Nobody look at her. Like, and then
Mm.
like they all live in like the same bedroom. And so when they get ill, they literally all are like cordoned off into like a sick bay, and they're sort of like separated from the rest of the world by hills upon hills. It's very like Misery by Stephen King, in the sense that you've got this like a bunch of sick people and they're all dying, and then an investigation is done, and it's like the school was like they fed these children sludge. Hang on, my dad's calling me and he never calls me, so I just need to answer.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sorry, I'm reading the Bronte lore. It's very interesting because it's
But
like all the members of all the. It's like yeah, I knew they all died, but I didn't realize they all died within a couple of years of each other.
yeah. But that was how
That's
it was
crazy.
back then, right? But that's the thing, like it that's what I'm talking about, like the culture is that the culture at the time, it was very like you get punished as a child for doing literally nothing wrong.
Mm.
Like
Yeah, and Jane gets punished. She gets punished in school.
no, she gets
Um.
punished, okay? Just to be clear, Jane gets punished by this guy that nobody likes because they all think that he's like
Oh, is he the owner of the
yeah,
school?
he's like
Yeah.
a religious guy who like runs this school but from a distance. But he comes to visit and he's like, "How dare you accidentally drop your slate on the floor? How dare you, child? And you're the wicked child that I know." And it's like, "Okay, but she's also like 8 years old.
Mm.
So can you just maybe understand that like the guy who has literally said to this girl's face that she is a bad child already before this moment, and has said that he is going to keep an eye on her at school and like report back to this woman who doesn't like her about all of her bad things that she does. How are you gonna stand there and say that she's like some kind of criminal who deserves to stand on a stool for 30 minutes because she had the audacity to accidentally drop something, and then to proclaim to like the entire school who is in this room she is a wicked liar?
Mm.
And then the teacher literally is like, and she goes crying to this teacher and she's like, "But I'm not a liar, I promise." And so she like clarifies the story and she calls this person, she's like, and she actually was trapped in this room overnight and horrified, even though she begged to be let out, and like was like really pale and almost fainted and stuff. And the doctor verifies the story, and so she gets sent away, for doing like that's like the final straw basically from the woman, is that her aunt is that she like has a fit in this room, like a literal fit. Like she literally is in a state of like physical as well as mental distress. And this aunt is like, "You wicked child." So she sends her away to the school, and then that like lingers over her because this man brings it up. And then she's able to prove her innocence. And it's declared in front of the whole school, and this whole school hates this guy. They hate him so much because they're like, "You're such an awful guy. You don't care about these kids. You feed them gruel. You get upset because we had the audacity to give them food after the other food was inedible because your cooks messed it up, and your materials are cheap and you don't pay for enough heating. So these kids all die from disease because they're being kept in unfair, like unhealthy conditions for growing children, and so they get
Mm.
wiped out by consumption." Well, no, typhus is what gets the rest of them, but then Helen gets she's consumption. And she
Mm.
has to be kept in a separate room because they have like 3 rooms to this entire school. So they're all being kept in the same place, fighting off disease. And it's like, how many kids died there? And it was this guy's fault. And she could have been one of them, and her aunt wouldn't have cared.
Mm.
It's foul. That's what it is. It's absolutely horrific. And it just, I think it's like that thing of poverty, but like she wasn't even poor. She was being subjected to poverty because her aunt, a grown woman, had spite for her. And
Like,
she like lives in misery because of it for years.
is it ever like drawn on the book why she hates her so much? I can't remember. It's been so long since
It
I read the
was
book.
something so stupid. It was like her husband wanted to take her in
Yeah, because her parents
after,
died,
because
I remember.
I think it was her mother married a man who was poor, and this
Oh,
woman looks down on the fact that she did that, and on the fact that she was kicked out of the family basically for doing that, and she was like not given any of the money that she was owed. And then all of a sudden there's this girl that she doesn't like having to live in a house, and her husband forces her to promise that she will keep her, that she will like keep his promise that he makes her make and raise this child. And, you know, he really cared about her and she doesn't at all care about it. And so even though her own children are horrors who grow up to be not very good people and not very good like children to her, she still blames Jane Eyre, a child who gets bullied her whole life and treated like a servant. And she is
Mm.
expected to be grateful for that. And the minister is like, I think he's a minister or whatever, but he's just like so rude about it. And it just really, it puts into like place immediately this idea of, because it's like I was saying, right, about like the woman in the attic, right? It
Mm.
all plays in together to me. Her experiences in the room, the way that she sort of is treated, and then the way that she experiences somebody else being treated.
Mm.
And for similar sort of reasons, of like everybody else thinks that you're wicked, and so you suffer. Everybody else thinks that you're crazy, so you suffer. And in the process, they put you somewhere that makes you do more bad things because they lock you in a room that is supposedly haunted, even when you're begging to be let out because you're horrified and afraid of a ghost coming to like get you. And you literally like faint and go into like nervous spells, and a doctor has to be called for you because of how they treat you, and yet they still think that you're the problem. That is what happens with the woman in the attic. And I feel like it's really interesting to consider that Jane kind of gets out of that because she gets sent away, and she sees that as like a joy. She gets to get out of that house and she is able
Mm.
to make something of herself from that. But the other woman isn't able to do that, which is really sad, to put it lightly.
Yeah. I always find it funny, like Victorian period dramas always have fires in them. There's always a fire. Even Rebecca.
To be fair, this woman is really interesting, I think, because fire is started by the woman. And it actually, in the book that I was talking about, A White Sargasso Sea, it actually talks about like the fire being started by her. But she chooses the fire, she sees that everything's on fire, she runs up to the roof. And I think is that the moment. Let me look it up. I think that might be the first moment that she's called by her name.
Bertha, because she's treated as like there's just strange goings on, like the cutting of the wedding veil and the random like laughing. It's almost
Oh,
like the
they
house.
find out. Okay, they find out at the wedding, whatever.
When she's getting married to.
But I think it would have been kind of incredible, actually, if they had just gone, and actually this was her name right before her death scene, because that scene is essentially her reclaiming her autonomy. Like, there's a fire, she goes up to the roof, he goes up to be like, come on, let's leave now, and she chooses instead to jump. And it's like, if you were her, I feel like we need to talk about it in more depth, because, okay, he says at one point, I could have sent her away to this house and she probably would have died really quickly because it's got like mold and stuff. It's really damp and horrible. And he says this with all of the red flags of a man written many years ago. He says this as if this is something that she should be grateful for him for. As if this is like a good point for him. As if like,
Sorry, I dropped.
yeah, I kind of I accidentally jilted my headphones there. But he says this as if it's like a good point to him that like, well, you know what? I might have locked her up, but I didn't lock her up somewhere that she'd be gone. Toot sweet. And it's like, do you want a medal for that? You took a
Yeah.
vow. You took a vow and you disobeyed that vow. You were just like, actually, nah. I was tricked into marrying you. So I'm not gonna take care of you at all. I'm just gonna lock you up and I'm gonna give you a caretaker. And if you do stuff, I'm gonna get angry at you. And I'm gonna keep you locked up in that room. And no one's ever gonna know that you exist. And it's like, okay, what like Jane, I simultaneously like have empathy for him and like the way that he was treated as a person. But like, can we just discuss the fact that like it's kind of karma that his wife, who he locks up for years, literally many years, and then she chooses to, rather than go with him to be locked up again, She chooses to
Mm.
just not have to live anymore because she's been treated like that for so long that that is like the best option. And you could argue that maybe she was a little bit mad. Maybe she did have genuine mental problems. Maybe being locked up all the time did it. Maybe it was, something that she was prone to, and if she had been treated properly, it wouldn't have been a real issue. But either way, knowing what she would have gone through afterwards, like, it's impossible not to say that maybe this was like the best thing for her in the way of like, her making a choice for herself. Obviously, it's unfortunate that that choice was death, but I think that it is really interesting to think that in that moment, because he goes to save her from dying, he ends up not getting out of the house soon enough, and therefore he is made blind by the fire.
Mm. Oh, I remember that. But
So
that.
he basically like gets kind of punished for what he's done to her. I feel like that's the way that I kind of almost interpret it, is that she frees herself and he gets punished for ever capturing her in the first place. And it's like, I don't know. I think that the whole like idea, because it's portrayed as like a romance, right?
Mm.
And he's the love interest, but we look at it from like a 21st century perspective.
Yeah, people do view it as a romance book. I'm like, it's got romance in it, but I'd say it's more of a gothic fiction.
She's at like the place for quite a while. I think it's like 200 pages before she gets, give or take, before she really meets the guy that she supposedly is her love interest. And it's only like a 500-page book.
Wait, is it?
But it literally, because I remember, and okay, I want to talk about this. Sorry, less serious of a topic than like the
Oh,
woman who,
wow. Do you want to know how many words it is before we continue?
wait, let me guess, 125,000.
Way more than that.
How many?
Apparently, it's between 83,000 to 190,000. What do you
That's
mean?
quite a big gap.
That is a long book. That is like a fantasy novel. Like that's
Didn't
like the
feel like
book.
it was
That's
that
the amount of
long.
the book
I
I'm
swear
reading
I've
when you've got
read.
to 700 pages.
That's
There's abridged
crazy.
versions. There are versions where it's shorter because I remember when I was a kid, we were studying Jane Eyre in year five for some bizarre reason, but we read an abridged version because it was like more, it cut certain things out. So like the scene with her and what's her friend's name?
Oh, well, hang on.
Um,
If like 400 pages is a little less.
version.
No, 400 pages is, let's say 350 pages is about 100,000. So 500 pages. That makes sense, actually. Kind of. Not a lot, but.
I assume it's this one, a Walker Abridged Classics for. Oh no, that's from 2024. That's. I assume it's going to be similar because how
They
old
may
were
have
you in year
reissued it.
five? 10? Yeah, 10. I imagine I studied something like that. I can't tell you what exact bridge, but I know it was abridged because I remember when I reread it, there was a lot more stuff going on. I was like, this isn't what I remember as a kid.
Me with Three Musketeers. But I find it really funny that he has like this whole arc where he purposefully convinces Jane, who he is in love with, that he is going to marry this other woman just to
Mm.
make her admit to him that she has feelings for him. Like, he does this as a ploy to get her to be like, I love you. And he goes so far as to be like, yeah, you are gonna have to leave if I'm gonna marry this woman. Like, are you serious? That's not romantic. That's really weird. He literally like reads her fortune, and she knows that it's him and not whoever it is that he's pretending to be. But like, how crazy do you have to be to like torment somebody like that who you love rather than just telling them? It's so
Mm.
bizarre. And like, then it happens and they're like, we're gonna get married right away, right now, tomorrow, like in a week. And it's like, okay, so what? Because they go out and they go shopping. It might be more than a week, but they like go out and they do it pretty quick. And he all this time has failed to tell her, like, oh, by the way, I do actually already have a wife, and she
Mm.
may or may not have been the person who tried to burn me alive while I was asleep. You know, when you saved my life that one time, yeah, that was her, that was my wife. And it's like, okay, Jane, you are young, he is old.
You were young, he is old.
He was like in his 30s and she was
40s, right?
19.
40s? I'm pretty sure he's in his 40s, right?
maybe even. But like literally she is so much
Oh,
younger than
that's
him and she falls in love with him. They've literally the timeline of this book, okay? Cuz I was reading it and I was like, okay, so it's been like a few years, right? It had been like 6 months.
roughly 37 to 40, so.
I think they literally knew each other for like 7 to 9 months. And she was away for like a month of that, mind you. Because she goes home to see her aunt, right? And she's
Mm-hmm.
there for like a month in the end. So she's known him basically for about 8 months of actually talking to him. And for some of those, for like a month or so of that, she has believed that he's going to marry someone else because he has led her to believe that on purpose to make her jealous so that she will confess her feelings for him. He tells her that she's going to have to leave, and she thinks that she is going to have to leave the house and never see him again. He literally goes as far as to be like, I found you a job posting. It's in Ireland. Isn't that exciting? And she's like crying to him. And that's when she confesses and blah, blah, blah. But like, this timeline is so messed up. Like, in the span of 8 months, he decides that he is in love with this woman who is 20 years younger than him, who is basically still a child. She's only 19. She's lived very little life experience in the way of, she went to school and then she got this job and that's it. She has never been to like other places. She's never done half of the things that he's done. He has a lot of experience with life. And not only, so again, he's married. He is married to a woman who is alive and who he is still married to at this point. So he decides within 8 months that he is going to marry this woman, but that he isn't going to propose to her. No, no, no. He is going to say to her that I'm going to marry this other woman and you're going to have to leave this house and you're going to have to leave employment. And then, when she gets jealous enough to confess her love for me, then I will ask her to marry me. As well as the fact that I'm still married. That's going to happen alongside me being married to my current wife, who I've locked up in a room on the 3rd floor because she's
Yeah.
like insane. And she's partially insane because I lock her in a room and she only ever sees like one person at a time who she is
Oh,
locked in a room with. And he does all of this and he plays mind games with Jane and he like invites her downstairs to sit in a room with a bunch of people who don't like her because she's poor and working class and they're rich and snooty and they clearly think less of her and they say this out loud while she is around. He does a little fortune telling session where he like tells her that he's getting married outright to somebody else whilst trying in that same session to get her to confess her feelings for him. This is like, it's insane. This like plan, he is either like the stupidest man ever or he is the most devious, manipulative man ever. It's crazy.
yeah. Yep, it does. Oh, quick question. How long have we got left?
9 minutes. Well, eight
Oh,
and a
wow.
half.
Okay.
I know
Eight
it's
and a
gone
half.
quick, actually.
Yeah. Do you know what? Did you ever, speaking of Jane Eyre, did you ever watch the miniseries? They made us watch the miniseries
I
at
didn't.
school. There's a miniseries.
What was it, BBC?
Probably. I remember watching it when I was a kid. So a miniseries, 1983, 2006. Would it have been that
Oh,
2006
hey.
version? Might have been the 2006 version.
Georgie Henley was in it? Shut up.
It might not be this one itself. It might be. I mean, I was in year 5 in 2007, so it could be that one. It looks familiar, but it could be the 1983. So it was over 20
4
years ago. I
people?
can't tell you.
Yeah, I only know 4 people from that cast, but ooh,
Ah, 1983. This one looks familiar. I think I watched the 1983 version. This looks familiar, so I think we watched the 1983 version. Makes sense.
I
But yeah, if you want something watched, the miniseries.
yeah, oh my god, I just mistook that person's age. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of that's like one of the beauties of, to quote Emerald Fennel, the beauty of it is getting to see what everybody thinks about it. Now, in this case, that's actually true. Because we do actually want to see adaptations of things like Jane Eyre, where they portray perhaps Jane as being stronger or more naive in different adaptations, because I think that the way that you perceive her can change a lot, especially through the generations. Like, at the time, I'm sure that she was seen by a lot of people to be quite a strong character because she makes her decision to leave after she finds out that the guy that she was about to marry is actually already married. She makes up her mind to do this thing that she's always wanted to do, and she does it, and then she decides, you know what? I actually love him, and I know that this might seem like I'm straying from my path, but I feel like this is the best thing for me. And so she follows what she thinks is her path. I think that it is undoubtable that there are moments of strength, but she's a 19-year-old girl who has lived, by a lot of accounts, a fairly sheltered life, and who meets a wealthy older man who does outright, he lies to her. He is manipulative with her feelings and with the situation. And so I feel like it's interesting to see the different adaptations of a thing like this, because especially like the way that she's portrayed, she is not supposed to be especially beautiful. She's supposed to be not pretty, but not like the beauty standard of the time. Again, you have that stuff that was mentioned in like Wuthering Heights, which we talked about on the podcast episode for the Patreon, by the way, exclusive. £3 a month, you get a free episode every month. Last month's March was Wuthering Heights, and boy, it was just me ranting the whole time. But beauty was
if it was,
because the beauty standard of the time was blonde hair, which realistically, if we think about it, is because at the time colonialism was in huge effect. The Brontes were very much against slavery. So the beauty standard was based on the idea that if you were white and you had blonde hair, and it was like shiny and healthy and stuff, and you had like pale skin with no colouring to it, then you were the beauty standard. You were the beauty standard because you were the kind of person who could feasibly be rich and stay indoors all day out of the sun, who was white, and you were so white that you had blonde hair. That is like the beauty standard of the time. And that is because of racial politics. And so, you've got this story of a woman who doesn't fit that, but who isn't ugly, but everybody calls her ugly. So you have to kind of be careful as well, I think, with casting stuff like that, because, like, I think it's like the Margot Robbie thing, right? Where, like, Kathy, for example, I talked about this in the other episode, she isn't Kathy because she's blonde and she's old. And again, like Jane Eyre, she's supposed to be a young brunette, and that's important to the character. It's important for a lot of reasons, but part of it is the same reason why it's important to Jane Eyre, where she is young, she is very different socially, she doesn't have a lot going for her. Everything that she has, she works for by being a good student, by being a good teacher, by being a kind-hearted person who people like and welcome into their home. That is what she has, and like, she has been sort of raised to believe that that's not true. And I think that it's really important to sort of understand that stuff when you talk about adaptation, and I feel like, that is something that's really interesting to see the way that people fit the sort of criteria of like Jane Eyre, but while putting their own spin on it, and especially like how much is the romance prevalent? Do they show Mr. Rochester as being this like great guy? Or do they show him as being a bit more devious? Because he is manipulative. Like, even if you think of it as being like a sweet kind of manipulative, him wanting to get her jealous because he cares about her so much and wants her to stand up for herself and claim him. It's still manipulation. It's still making her feel a certain way to get an outcome that he wants. Like, it's just so interesting to think about it from different time periods when different things were deemed acceptable, when different age relationships were deemed acceptable. If Mr. Rochester existed now and he went out with like a 19-year-old woman who worked for him, it would be like the Try Guys situation where you'd be like, that guy would get publicly disowned by everybody that had ever built him up, because you can't date an employee who is financially dependent on you. You can't date an employee who you have threatened to kick out of your home so you can marry somebody else. You can't date a 19-year-old when you're nearly 40. Like, I just think it's interesting to view adaptation of a text of this age in light of the way that social progression has occurred in the last century and a half.
Yeah, I think times have changed, but do you know what? I mean, for the time, the book was considered like, oh, how dare a woman speak like how she speaks? It's dead.
Because the The rich people, we get like a portrait of these rich people. And I think, again, it's kind of interesting because Rochester himself, his family kind of saw him as like the black sheep of the family, and he was like excluded from getting any money. And then his family died and it didn't matter. But like, he sees all of these rich people who don't view Jane very highly, who don't rate the ward of his potential daughter very highly. And he thinks of them as being less. And he is willing to marry Jane. He wants to marry Jane. He thinks that he would be happy with Jane in a way that he could never be happy with a woman who was raised the way that the women that he meets are raised. Because of the class and the way, and they're sort of the way that women, I hate to say this because it's not always true, but women are groomed in circles like that to be a kind of certain caliber of lady, to be a certain kind of wife, and to have specific kinds of talent that they can show off. And I feel like that's all, it's really important in the grand scheme of things that he does choose, the same way that Jane chooses somebody who has made another woman into who she was as a child, who imprisoned another woman the way that she was imprisoned by her aunt. He chooses a girl, a woman to marry who has been treated throughout her life the way that he has been treated, ostracized by family. And, you know, who isn't like these people who remind him of those people who did that to him, of the people who, in his mind, tricked him into marrying a woman who was insane and who was always going to go insane. My cat's just come in.
Yeah, it's a good book though. Do you know what? I think I have the audiobook, right? Because obviously, let me just look. I'm curious. Do I?
But what I'll say is the next episode is going to be about... I actually don't know. I've been like editing them, so if they're really bad, blame me.
I have the audiobook. I have the audiobook.
The schedules are mixed up. But I think the next one that we're doing, the next editor video, the next writing video, no.
Editor video.
The next podcast episode that you will hear is a writing video, which is going to be about planning versus pantsing. Different styles, basically, of planning or not planning a novel. What they mean,
I do both.
Yeah, plantser. I'm a bit of a plantser. But then after that, I think we're going to talk about Catcher in the Rye. We can do it a bit more like this episode, if you guys like it, where we, you know, I'll take notes while I reread it to be like, and this is like a thing that I pulled up, because honestly, I find it kind of fun. And I do need to be getting back into that stuff.
Yes. I haven't had time to reread it, but I was like, I can discuss it because I have read it. It's like, but I have the audiobook, so I think I'm going to re-listen to it because I kind of want to refresh my mind on the book now that you've...
Also, I don't know if you can hear that. That's my stomach. I'm so hungry today.
No, I can't hear anything, so it's fine.
I think we've been talking about this privately. I've been, like, growing, okay? I'm still growing. I'm 23. I've gotten taller. My boobs have gotten bigger.
Are you sure? Your body changes, but are you sure you've gotten taller?
I've definitely gotten taller. Like, there were, like, certainly, like, I was kind of in denial about it, but, like, we did measure me, and I am taller than my mum, who is the height that I thought that I was. And do you know what I will say as well? I went on a walk with my sister. I'm as tall as my sister. And she was at a doctor. She got actually told that she was 6 foot tall. Exactly. So I'm like my sister's height. And I noticed that because my sister we always thought that she was 5'11". And I always looked up to her because she was always, like, literally, I always looked up to her because she was taller than me. Because I was always the shortest in the family. And I went on this walk with her and I was like, I'm the same height as you. I'm, like, level with you. That's crazy. And I didn't think anything of it. But I am. I'm tall. Officially. I would never say I was tall before because I never felt tall. But I do feel tall now. Actually, like, I look at the room around me and stuff and I'm like, huh. And like the mirrors in my dad's house that were built for my dad's height, who's like 6'3", I am at a good height in them now. I didn't used to be. I used to have to kind of stand up on my toes a bit. But it's all good now. I'm kind of like bang in the middle, actually. So it just is really like, I don't know, I'm growing and I think I'm getting really hungry. Like a lot. Like I'm like, food.
I am just short. Like, I'm just short.
But yeah, it's like I said, and you know what? To be fair, I have had growing pains as well. And I literally have gotten more stretch marks on my legs, which I love, by the way. Because body positivity is a big thing. I always call them my tiger stripes.
Yeah, I mean, everybody. The thing is, right? I know we're going off topic, but like, stretch marks are natural on women. Women have them. I have them. I have them on my stomach. Like everybody, because I lost a lot of weight, so like I have them on my stomach. I have them on my boobs because my boobs are not to get too graphic, but I have really big boobs and I hate them.
Well, that's the
Wait,
thing.
they take
You
up
get
half
them
my
wherever
chest
you
and think about it.
grow faster than your skin can like
Yes,
generate, basically. That's what it is. It's like if you imagine like a cut heals with scar tissue, you've essentially grown so
exactly.
fast that it has made scar tissue rather than skin. Like it's so natural, and I again, as I said, I call them my tiger stripes. I think they're kind of cute. I
The
love
thing
them,
is,
and I'm so pale that like when they stand out, I'm like, "Oh my god, my stripes."
the thing is
Because
with mine, right? They've gone white. They fade
yeah,
over time.
and the thing is as well is like especially like right now, like I have gotten bigger. Like my bra size has gone up. And I think it might still be going up because every now and then I get pain and I'm like, that doesn't feel.
Yeah.
So I'm still growing as a person, which is kind of crazy. But I think that that's kind of the beauty of it. How did we get onto this? I feel like it was
Talking about growing.
anyway. The
I
Catcher
have
in the
no idea
Rye.
what.
I have to write a dissertation soon, for uni, and I'm getting into like a more analytical mindset with my reading again. So my comments on that will probably be more analytical. But that's the next book that we're doing. We're talking about planning versus plantsing versus pantsing in the next episode. And I have lost the plot. But yeah, Jane Eyre's fun. It's a good book.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, I've lost the thread so badly.
I think we need to go get some food. So do I. It's
Yeah.
1:45. We need to
Oh,
go get
that's where
some
this came
food.
from because I'm hungry and my tummy's been
True.
rumbling because I've been like proper hungry again. Yeah. Just to wrap that
Yeah.
conversation up. But yeah, the next episode it'll be the writing one, and then the one after that it'll be the Catcher in the Rye. Please do check out our Patreon. You don't have to pay, obviously. You will literally not miss out on anything that you already had if you're just a free listener. But we do have a paid one, and we talked about Wuthering Heights, and we will probably talk about a few other interesting books, including potentially but not guaranteed, maybe Thorthwing. Maybe. That's a
Oh,
hard maybe. But we'll try and do it
that's
not
my
just
opinion. I just
critical.
I don't want to read it because I know I'm just gonna hate it. So it's
We
why
could
like I
just do a
don't.
romanticy one to be fair, because I think
But
that
yeah, well,
there's
I've just been saying that like fantasy. They're calling it a romantasy, but I'm like that. It
not
sounds like a
romanticy is
total
that
fantasy.
it's a very
They
different
just label
style,
anything
and
as
I
a
think that
romantasy.
there are some criticisms to be had of it that are constructive. So we could probably talk about that. But we're
Yeah.
going to talk about stuff that maybe is controversial. Imagine there was like a siren sound effect there. But yeah, that's kind of the vibe. Is that the podcast Patreon is going to be like the podcast plus just a little bit more of like the stuff that we wouldn't necessarily talk about. And then I think yeah, we've got The Catcher in the Rye. We've got another Sylvia Moreno Garcia book for the year,
Yes.
and then
She's
an
we
author
like her books.
interview.
Yeah. So we will see you next week.
Yes, goodbye.
Bye. All right, that's done.
Thank you for listening to the Bookish Rambles podcast. If you want to hear more from us,
Follow to get the next episode delivered straight onto your feed.